Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We could have the reading of the mission and vision, please.
The vision statement of Richmond Community Schools. Richmond Community Schools, a collaborative community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Mission statement, Richmond Community Schools guides students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Thank you both. Go and move on to item 2, oath of office. Mr. Cross.
Thank you. I'd ask members.
Member.
Celeste Stinky. Raise your hand and repeat after me, please. I solemnly swear.
I solemnly swear
Or affirm.
or affirm
That I will support the Constitution of the United States of America.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
The Constitution of the State of Indiana.
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
And the laws of the United States.
and the laws of the United States
And the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties.
I will faithfully execute the duties
Of my office as a member.
of my office as a member
Of this governing body.
of this governing body.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. And good luck.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you both. We'll have Mr. Mops here at our next meeting. Moving on to item 3, celebrations. Dr. Wright.
President Weber, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Hazel Baker join us here at the podium to present tonight's celebratory.
Good evening.
Yes.
I have a very special guest with us tonight. I have a Richmond High School senior who was selected recently as the Living Scholarship winner, and she's going to come up and join us and tell us a little about herself. Rebecca?
Hello, it's nice to see all of you.
Hello.
Hi.
All right, Rebecca, we are so excited about this, just so you know. We're like, yay, Richmond has a winner, and it's Rebecca, who's such a really sweet young lady, so tell us
how you found out.
about the process.
Well, how I found out first to be a finalist, it was over fall break and I was at the movies and I got a call on my phone. It was like a random number and I didn't know who it was, and it had a voicemail I listened to after the movie, and they told me that they wanted me to call them back. So I called them back and I was with my friends and it was like in the car over the speaker, and they told me I was a finalist, which I thought there was going to be 10 finalists, so I was like, oh, maybe I'll get in. And they said it was just 5, and I started crying and I was like, I'm super thankful, thank you so much. And then I went into the actual interview and went through, and everyone that was a finalist was super, super nice, super kind, and well deserving as well as me. And then after I left there, I was nervous all the way through November and December. And then it was mid-December, and it was on my mind, oh no, it's gonna be coming up. And then my friend comes into school, Elena Tate, Miss Brown, and Miss Stoltz know her. But she comes in and she's like, why is your mom at this school? And I'm like, why is my mom at this school? I don't know why she'd be here. And she was like, it's probably the scholarship. And I was like, no, it's probably not that. I didn't get my hopes up about it. And then my counselor comes down and takes me to the library, said it was about my FAFSA, something was wrong about it. And so I walk into the library and I see everyone standing there, and I was like, okay, now I know what it is. And I was super, super grateful and excited about it. And it was just amazing for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So were you super nervous during the interview process?
Yeah, I was very nervous. I was more nervous during the dinner part. We ate a dinner with all of the finalists and then all the board people. And that was more nerve-wracking to me. Once it was just individual, I felt more calm and at peace because it was just me. So that part was better. But
So did you practice how to hold your cutlery and
we had to go
putting
get
a
our food in
napkin on
a
your lap?
different room, and I kind of spilled the lettuce on my plate, and that was a little freak out a little bit. Yeah, I was trying to be my best.
So, we know what the Lilly Scholarship is all about.
Yeah.
The public doesn't. Most of them won't know, and I mean it's something very prestigious. So would you please tell the public what this is all about? Because it is something very significant.
Yeah. It's just about choosing students from each county that like represent like their county and their school well and who have tried very hard throughout all their years of schooling. And it's just, for me, it's an honor to have it, and it's such a blessing to me, because none of my past family went to college. I'm a first-year college student, so it just like opened so many doors in my life, and it's just like made so many opportunities for me, and it's just a big honor for me. And I'm glad I could bring like pride and happiness to my school as well. That was a nice part of it.
I want to add that Rebecca, I was her classroom teacher in 3rd grade and 4th grade, and what you see now, how caring and positive she is, and so smart. I mean, that's how she was in 3rd and 4th grade too. When I heard that you wanted, I mean, I screamed out loud. I was so excited. Where are you going? What college are you choosing, and what path are you following?
I'm going to Ball State to study elementary education.
And following your graduation at Ball State, you're coming back to serve in Richmond Community Schools. That is so great to hear.
Well, I remember, I think we met this fall. I was with my son at a soccer game, and I believe you ran up to him and said hello, and I said, "Who is that, Jack?" And so
Jack is great.
so I was super thrilled when I saw your name and put those two pieces together.
Yeah.
So congratulations, and he's very excited for you too.
Good.
I had the privilege of having Rebecca in 8th grade, and yeah, when I saw the news, I was like, well deserved, definitely. She's a sweetheart and will represent us well, so I'm excited for you to be living your dreams, so to speak.
Again, congratulations. I think the legacy that you leave behind as you move on will indeed be one that others strive and aspire to achieve. And so, again, congratulations. And as has already been echoed, we're very, very proud. And I know that your parents, I'm sure, are so very.
Yeah.
Yes. And of all the educators and facilitators that have helped along the way, they too share the joy. So, congratulations.
Thank you guys so much.
Say that again, please.
Thank you guys for being my school my whole life. I was in Westview and then Hibbard and then high school my whole life. And if I was at a different school program, I don't know if I would be a winner. I don't know if I'd feel the same way. Like the teachers, like the two here today, they've just impacted my life so much, and they've really they're impacting me, stayed with me my whole life and made me who I am. So thank you guys.
You make us all teary.
We have that on video, correct?
I was just about to say that is being recorded, no doubt about it. That's
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
Well, thank you for that. And
Rebecca,
thank you.
before you go, I'm going to pontificate here, I guess, I don't know. But that was one of the most important statements I've ever heard a student make at that podium in my thousands of years on this school
25.
board. 25, yeah. To thank, wow, yeah, I'm not gonna cry. Okay, thank you so much. That was such an important statement to make. Thank you so much.
Speaks volumes.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 4, public commentary.
We just have one.
Faithful? Okay.
Steve Jones.
I was going to be disappointed in you if you did not do that before
I
this.
was just scrambling for a
Young
business
lady
card. I was
left.
like, I should have got a business card. to give
I
it
had
to her,
already
so-
told Donna I was going to go to the office and get some for her.
Magnet on his car.
Hey, very quickly, you guys have gotten hammered the last couple of years on stuff, and you guys don't always hear the good stuff. So I got 2 things for you. Number one is we had a unfortunate incident at Charles before break, where we had a water main break. I had nothing to do with it. Friday off was great, but I had nothing to do with it. I was there all day. But I've been in, I think it's my 7th district and 11th or 12th school. I've been all over the country. I don't think I would ever be in a place other than here that a water main break, and we got the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the head of HR, their families, all there to help clean up. I mean, they got to call at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I don't know what time it was. And I know, the assistant superintendent was heading to New York, and she's there trying to get things done. Jamie, you brought Clay with you, which I think we're going to have to get him tested for some performance enhancing. Because, we're trying to, I've been working with Eugene trying to get that rug out of there, and I'm like, it took 2 of us, and I heard he just threw it on his shoulder. So kudos to you guys, because that would not happen. In every place I've been, that probably would not happen. So, that's just awesome that you guys, you got no problem rolling up your sleeves and getting into it. So, we appreciate that. So
It was a warm-up for what we had to come.
Yeah, they did. See, they got the whole month off. I got Friday off. So, secondly,
not
I just want to tell you, and I know you guys probably tired of hearing me say Premier Elementary School, but I'll tell you is that here again, I mean, this is, like I said, I don't know how many schools I've been in, but I have never been so welcomed into a building by the staff as I have been at Charles. So, I mean, it's kind of easy for me to like say, the pride of the city. Isn't that what the pride of the city? So Charles Elementary, that's gonna be the next shirts. No, it just, we got a great place here and we got good leadership that, like I said, they have no problem jumping in and helping out. And that's all I want to say. So I appreciate you guys and
Thank you.
keep up the great work. So,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you both. All right, moving on to work session, reorganization of the board. Item 5.1, election of officers. Traditionally, we have 3 officers that represent our executive board. Traditionally, those roles run in 2-year cycles, not necessarily, but I am finishing up my 2nd year as president of the board. And so I would simply open the floor to see if we have any interest or any nominated slates or individuals. So,
Mr. President, I would nominate member Nicole Stoltz to serve as president of the board.
Second.
okay. Let's see. Kim
I
has
move that the
considered-
nomination be closed on this one name.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion by Aaron Stevens, a second by Peter Zaleski for Nicole Stoltz as president.
She need to accept the nomination.
I believe so.
I accept.
All right, I'm sorry, I have new paperwork to look at, so first time doing this. I will, hearing that, I'll put to the floor for a vote, the nomination of Nicole Stoltz for president of the school board of trustees. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to vice president, or do I keep going, Mr. Cross, or do I turn it over now?
Well, I would say now you could turn over the leadership to the president-elect. If she's strong-arming you, I would strongly
I keep elbowed me a couple times. So with that, I guess I will turn over my paperwork and my gavel. Thank you, Mrs. Stoltz.
Learning on the fly. Okay.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so moving on to any nominations for vice president of the board.
I move that we nominate Brad Walton for vice president.
Second.
Second.
All right, those
I
in.
will accept.
Okay. Thank you, Brad, for your accepting. Let's see if you get voted in. All right. Any those in favor, please say aye.
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 And
I
nay
didn't do it,
for
Rod.
opposed. All right. So 6. Okay, and then for secretary. Any
Madam
nominations?
President, I nominate board member Kristen Brunton.
Second.
And I move that the nominations be closed on this one name,
Second.
which I failed to do last time.
And Kristen, are you accepting your
accept.
nomination?
I do.
Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we now have our officers elected.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I may add something. I think we'd be remiss if we did not extend our thanks to John Weber and to you and former member Jeff Slifer for their service to the board in the positions of the executive committee over the last couple of years. When you think that we have gone through COVID, we've gone through a lot of turmoil and issues, but I think that those 3 board members represented us well with the administration with connections with our staff and faculty, with our community. And I think John's leadership has really been very strong during that time. And he did a fantastic job, but the executive committee did. And there were you all had been three different individuals, but you came together with one thought in mind, and that was what was best for RCS and for our students. So I think that we should extend that appreciation to you and to John, to Jeff in his absence.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to 5.03 appointments. The board is. What'd you hand me here?
Board meetings and dates.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry about that. Board meetings and dates, we're at 5.02. So, is that something you want to talk about, Dr. Wright?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Madam President, trustees, I come before you this evening with regard to item 5.02, the 2023 board meeting dates and dates that I have yet to be scheduled. Since assuming the helm here at RCS, I have engaged in conversations with fellow members of our Board of Governance regarding the subject of our meeting schedule. I have learned that at one point consideration was given to transition from 2 meetings per month to 1 meeting per month. After conferring with our central office leadership team, we feel that we would be more effective in carrying out our duties if we transition to 1 meeting per month. Our rationale lies in the fact that as soon as a board meeting concludes, our departments begin working feverishly to carry out that evening's approved consent and action items, while also working hard to prepare necessary documents for the next scheduled board meeting, which in most cases is a matter of days at times, it feels. Not to mention, departmental leaders are conducting working groups with respective board members throughout the month, and we also have to be well prepared for all other monthly required meetings that indeed require quite a bit of preparation and behind the scenes setup per se. With that said, we believe that we indeed will be able to better maximize our abilities as corporate leaders and continue to improve upon efficiencies and effectiveness overall if indeed we transition from 1 meeting per month. Transition from 2 meetings per month to 1. Thus, I come before you for approval of my recommendation to modify our board meeting schedule from 2 meetings per month to 1 meeting per month. Within your agenda, within the board docket, you will see that we are recommending that we transition to 1 meeting per month, and that meeting would fall on the second to last Wednesday of each month to be in.
It's the 4th.
I'm sorry, the fourth Wednesday, not the second to last. So the 4th Wednesday, yes, the 4th Wednesday of each month to work in lockstep with our business department and pay periods.
All right, so do we need to have a motion before we can discuss? Is that correct? Okay, just making sure. So do I have a motion to approve the 2023 board meeting dates as presented?
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, discussion.
I am not at all in favor of the 1 meeting a month. And I am in favor of restructuring the meetings to lighten the load of the cabinet members for the second meeting each month, to have more of a work session or an open roundtable that would continue to have public commentary, public input, and where we could streamline the business meeting could be streamlined more to where we could get all of the T's crossed, I's dotted, everything we need to do as an institution. And then the second meeting of the month, where if we had something to talk about, especially going on with like the education working group or the facilities working group or we're talking about textbook adoption or book fees or heaven forbid you ever talk about dress code again or anything like that, we could talk about those topics in the work session to where if we're talking, and we're not considering this, but if I'm just gonna throw topics out, if we're talking about dress code, you wouldn't need half of your cabinet here. You know, there would be no reason Mr. Slifer would need to be here. There'd be no reason that Jamie would need to be here because we would be talking more in general terms, talking with the public, talking of that nature, to where you get lessen loads on that. But one thing we've prided ourselves on is transparency, trying to be as open to the public, open to our staff, open to our teachers. And to me, going to one meeting a month limits the public commentary and the options for opinions to be heard from staff, students, stakeholders, things of that nature. But having said that, like I said, I'm all in favor of restructuring to where we can lighten loads and to where it's not as encumbersome on central office staff. But I'm not okay with the one meeting a month. That's my opinion.
I mean, I think at this point, since we have a meeting scheduled in 2 weeks, as per we would normally do, I mean, I would think that gives ample time for the new agenda committee, which is the executive committee of the board, and administration to possibly fill in those blanks with work session or maybe I mean, that gives us some time to think what we want those off Wednesdays to look like. And so I guess I would be in favor of approving the calendar as submitted and then filling in some dates. I don't know if that satisfies the rest of the board, but to say, okay, on the off Wednesday, we want this work session to look like this. We're not gonna have update reports, we're not gonna have this, but we are gonna have a scheduled meeting, and here's what the format may be. And even to the fact that if those have to go on the calendar, I think there's much, I think it makes sense to have a different feel. I mean, we basically have gotten in the pattern where we have the same meeting every 2 weeks. I think we definitely can change that. And so I'd like to see some kind of intentionality into what that other date looks like, that it is vastly different from a normal board meeting. I don't know if administration would be, I mean, you hate to just keep adding to you guys, but you know, with the goal of making it better overall, can we have some talk through the next two weeks? So we have something in the next, so maybe we're presented a calendar at the next meeting where we approve those off Wednesdays. I don't know, that's my thought.
I mean, could we table this and then next meeting, we would have all the dates on this and then it'd be all approved at once? Yes, I feel like.
What's published at this point? Just January 25th?
No, just the 11th, just today.
Just today, okay.
Nothing else is published.
Going to your question, we've got a motion and a second on the floor right now, so somebody has to withdraw that. But my opinion of this is, as a board member who's served here long, I accept blame, you know, for previous boards for getting to the point where we have overloaded you and you and you and you and everyone who has sat in those positions in the past. Because we've gotten into the weeds and we have required and requested and wanted more dotted I's and crossed T's from you that have required you to spend excessive time in a 2-week span of getting things prepared for us so you can stand at that podium and present to us. And I take, you know, I'll accept the blame on that because I think that in doing so, as a board, we need to let you do your jobs. And I'm in favor of still having 2 meetings a month. One, the business session as is tonight, but a work session where if, for instance, Ms. Hansini, if you wanted, if there was something that was pressing that you needed to come and present to the board, we do invite the public. But we as a board invite some stakeholders. We sit here, we have a roundtable discussion, and we run it in the manner that you do with our education committee meetings. There's a certain beginning time and a certain ending time, and we stay with that frame. You make, and I'm just using you as an example, you make those meetings so worthwhile because we stay focused. We stay focused and in line, in a timeline, and we end in a timely manner. If we were to have a second meeting of the month as a work session, it would be if we wanted to talk about facilities or talk about, whatever the topic may be. We have that presenter there. We allow them to give 15, 20 minutes of presentation. We as a board get to discuss it. We have the dialogue with them. After that is finished, then we give an opportunity for several minutes of public commentary, and we're done within an hour's time. So that we're not looking at a meeting that is going to last 2.5 hours. But we get a business session. We conduct all the business that we're required to do. And that next meeting of an hour long, if that's going to, and believe me, I would love to see a free Wednesday. The only Wednesday of the month that I don't have a board meeting of some type is if there are 5 Wednesdays in the month. So I would like to have an extra Wednesday off, but that's just my thought.
We sincerely appreciate all that has been said, and I will also reference that on the off Wednesdays that we're not meeting with our board of school trustees. Those are the times in which we are meeting with our education association, and preparation for those meetings, as you imagine, as should be, just as.
I think it also gives you the opportunity to, if you have personnel issues come through that need to be dealt with in a timely manner, if you have bid contracts that need to be, heaven forbid we have an emergency in the high school where we need to, vote on some contracts or something like that, I don't know, maybe now. We could squeeze those in on those off Tuesdays. And I just like having that on the schedule, and they don't have, like Mr. Stevens said, they don't have to be long. They don't have to be really in depth and detail, just.
And such a format would also provide us with an opportunity to continue to educate you all and further delve deep into particular subjects, singular or plural,
and I think
that you all have the information you need.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think just from a transparency standpoint, I don't think we want to back off at this point. And I would assume the board updates, this is my first meeting, so the board updates that you guys gave us, have those typically been done before every meeting, so twice a month? Would that need to be done twice a month? Could that be backed off? So you have areas where you could save time for the cabinet.
And again, and that's a great question, Mrs. Zaleski, and I don't want to steal any thunder from our amazing central office leadership team and our cabinet, because the update indeed is one that we want to make sure that we're providing accurate information and delving deeply. And ladies, and Mr. Schleifer, I would definitely open the floor up to ask that you all share maybe things look like within your respective departments following the board meeting. Because if it was just simply about that board update, I think that'd be one thing. But I know that there are particular things out of you all's departments, respectively, that you have to adhere to and attend to.
Dr. Wright, if I may interject something before giving them the opportunity. With the model that I discussed, the business meeting, and then having that work session, that abbreviated work session. I'm going to throw a pie in the sky. Let's say it was something on the upcoming new comic books. I really threw a pie in the sky. Okay, and we've got the new director of comic books who wants to give us a presentation because there are some people in favor of it and some not. You don't need to be here, and you won't need to be here, and you won't need to be here, and you won't need to be here. That director, he or she, they're the only ones that need to be here, along with the board and the superintendent, to give us this presentation, this oral presentation, and then we can discuss it as a board and everything else. If it's something that comes necessary, then we go ahead and we take action on it in the business session, all right? But what I don't want to do, I want to continue with 2 meetings with that work session model that I described. However, I don't want to force, the associate superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the HR director, and anybody else having to do more work in a 2-week period of time and then still have to be here for another 2 hours on another Wednesday. Does that make sense?
Without a doubt. And then again, with the recommendation, it indeed is intended to improve upon efficiencies and maximize effectiveness, because as I referenced, it just, we do, at times, it feels in which wheels may be spinning and or our efforts and talents may be spread thin, whereas if indeed we could zero in and focus, we just, but the format that has been discussed and the suggestion as far as moving the second meeting to a work session, I think provides a plethora of opportunities to continue to be transparent, and even that much more with some of the format options that you all have discussed, and I think that's something that I think we appreciate.
Just kind of to pick up on what Aaron, and you and I may be the only ones that remember it, and I hate to say whose administration it was because time flies by, but this isn't something that hasn't kind of been prototyped, at least, because there was a point in time when I think there was a development of 12 topics that would be considered at the non-work session, if you will, of the non-business meeting. My only advice would be, from my observations of that, is that you maintain, if you're going to go to this model, some spontaneity, because you can't, I don't care, the administration can't, the board exec committee can't look in January and tell you what's going to be hot and trot in September, you know. So I think that's the function of the administration with the executive committee working on the agenda. And there may be, Aaron, there may be a month where there isn't a need for that second meeting.
Right. And there may be times, as
I like
that emergency meetings are called, just as has been done in the past, in addition to what we have.
Okay, so it sounds like we are indeed wanting to increase our efficiencies. We're all on board with that, with streamlining, but not at the expense of transparency. And that just, we would like to have maybe a more approachable format with the work sessions. So are we good going ahead and voting on the motion with?
Madam President, I would like to withdraw my motion.
Hold on a second. Are we okay voting on the motion already presented with the expectation that work sessions will be added to the schedule?
Well,
Because we do need to have all of these board meetings already. That's my thought. That's not me as president, that's me as Nicole,
Okay.
a board member saying, that's my thought.
What I was gonna say is, I was going to withdraw my motion
Okay,
and motion that we publish the January 25th, 2023 board meeting, and we discuss the calendar at that meeting.
okay, we can do it either way.
I second that motion.
Okay.
And I think, you know, Mr. Cross's point of scheduling a work session, yet if there is nothing to be discussed necessarily, who says that we have to have it?
I mean, no, I mean, you can always cancel a meeting.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, I'd
you
rather
know,
have
if
it
you advertise it, you don't have to have it.
Mhm. I mean, and there's nothing within my heart that says, because we scheduled a work session on the fourth Wednesday of April, it's not forcing the cabinet to come up with some type of topic or discussion so that requires us to have that meeting. If it's necessary, you know, instead of having somebody come up and give us 15 minutes of a presentation, if that's not necessary, you don't have to go and seek for something for a second meeting.
I mean, I would just encourage the agenda team or committee, which is comprised of the executive board and Dr. Wright, and then any cabinet members that are necessary, to just to keep in mind what this new calendar was trying to do, and then to have those. I mean, I'm fine to have 2 meetings, but to have that second meeting look very different. Right now, I don't know the difference between our meetings until I read it, really, business meeting or working. And so I would have, and that's a lot of work for you guys to have to, but you know, to really have a concept of what works for these guys and what works for us, and make a real differential between those two meetings. That would be my charge to you guys.
Motion and a second on the floor.
We've got a few more people
We
to
can discuss this further next week. Or
Would you
next
like,
meeting.
Well, I'll take the opportunity. As far as the board update itself, as you know, I love to share the amazing things that are happening in our district. I'm sometimes accused of putting too much in the board update, and so I've had to really focus in on the items that are being presented at the board meeting to give you all a heads up so that you can vote and be knowledgeable. With that being said, there are some things that I would throw out as possibilities for you to consider. As we're talking about ways to market our schools, one thing would be to potentially hold a board meeting if you still chose to do a second at each one of our schools. We've tried to provide we've talked about having principals highlight and share and celebrate some of the work. So for example, what if this evening we're at Charles and the Charles team were there? It would also provide an opportunity for community feedback, because what I would assume is that would draw in that crowd of that school. So throughout the year, we could visit each building. Another option would be, a mentor of mine shared that they did lunch and learns at each building. So instead of an evening, the board members would report to that building during a lunchtime and just get kind of an up-to-date picture of what's going on in the building. So those are just some things that I was thinking as we were talking, but it is, I know, on our team when we are trying to support and do the many things, I have a hard time keeping up with what you're trying to do, be in the work while also capturing and then determining what is it that I do want to share. And sometimes I think I put things in the updates that maybe don't matter, but then I miss something that should be in there. So those are all of the things that we're trying to cross every T and dot every I in our communication. But you have to remember our communication, there are different levels of communication that we know we have to have, whether that is at the building level, that is with that among our cabinet team, whether that is with all of you. And so, you know, mistakes can happen and we can misstep and not have that communication, but we are aware of the different channels of communication that we need to have. But immediately following a board meeting or a discussion meeting with our association, we are all wheels turning. What are the next steps? Who are the people we need to be in communication with? What are the meetings that need to be set up? You know, where are the checks and balances with the working groups and so forth? So we are working all diligently to keep up with that communication, but that is what it feels like on our end. But I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Stevens, for saying, what are you thinking? But I think there are some other ways that we can maybe also be able to celebrate the work in our buildings. And we would love, I know that some of our board members visit buildings, but I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to celebrate. And with that being said, it wouldn't need our entire team at those buildings, but maybe there could be some rotations. I think community feedback is something we're really wanting, and so I'm wondering if catering to that specific neighborhood would then draw in families to get feedback from. So thank you. And I don't know if anyone else on the cabinet team wanted to share.
I took a couple notes, if I may.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Kim, not to put you on the spot, but do you normally, about tomorrow, reach out to us to say, I need your agenda items so that they can go to executive?
Yes, so
for
what
the next
happens
meeting?
is I come in Thursday morning, I do the minutes, everything done, send out to the community, and my very next thing on my to-do list is to send an email to cabinet saying, I need all your agenda items for the January 25th board meeting by Tuesday morning, because Dr. Wright's meeting with the exec committee. And so they have to have everything for the 25th to me by the Tuesday after this board meeting.
So that
And
two
so
days
it,
for the most part.
yeah, so it goes, so they don't have a minute to.
We come out, and
Right.
keep in mind, we just came out, we had a leadership meeting today. And then we came out of that leadership meeting and then went into a departmental meeting for some of us, and then went right into corporate discussion, and then right into here. And then we'll leave here and then try to do some actual move forward work. And then we get that email tomorrow morning, and there's no time to move the work forward. Sometimes it feels like, and I think some of that is just as time frames as far as when the expectations are due. I know previously we had utilized board docs as a way to notify our board members. We all had different levels of accessibility to board docs where we could submit our agenda items as we have them and to work ahead in a manner of such. And then within that, we put a narrative for the board. And then we could also provide the information also for the public that we could provide in a manner that replaces possibly the board update because it's received within the agenda item, but the agenda is built separately as you're also providing discussion and input as to why that agenda item is necessary and just some substantiation behind it. So I know that there's some of those things. I would also say then, as Kim said, we're trying to provide an executive update, narrative for the executive update, and then that goes into working groups and narrative for the working group, and then there's minutes for each of those meetings as well, and then the corporate discussion, building level discussion, individualized meeting discussion, leadership meetings, department meetings. And we want to also obviously focus on those because they are crucial, not only for departmentalized, building-wise, corporate-wide, but we also don't want to lose sight of the important work that's within those meetings and to be able to have that time that's maybe while the sun is up a little bit to move and advance that work, because I think that that's what we don't want to get lost in some of that. So I certainly appreciate the opportunity to have just some brief comments and just the discussion. And anybody that knows me, I am a huge component of transparency. I think it's necessary. So I certainly appreciate that. I love the recommendation that Dawn had at the building. So thank you for allowing me to offer some insight.
So in your opinions, would the work sessions help alleviate some of the, the issue at hand or not? Or is that just kind of like, oh, we're just we're renaming, it's the same?
So coming from the county, their use of a work session was very different than what maybe your format thought process is about that. And I liked it because it was a little more free.
Right.
So you could have conversation. It wasn't just agenda item, pass, fail. And it's more like pencil, paper, let's get out and do some work. And I think that, in my opinion, a work session like that takes the work to a different level. In a positive direction, because there maybe isn't so much back end work because we know a lot of it, and we're doing it every day. But it's trying to get it to you in a format that makes sense, that you can make decisions by, that is informative, and that also maybe allows you to ask the questions that are hard to put in a written format, or even there's a lot of what we do that is gray matter that you want to ask that question, you don't know how to ask it, so it's not maybe. It's not meant to be derogatory, but it's hard to write it in a way that it sounds nice. And I don't mean that in a way that nice mean whatever, but it does allow interaction. And so I think from that perspective, it would take a little of the formality load off, if that makes sense. I think it also provides you and the administrative team with the ability to interact in a way that might progress decision making and progress you in a way in which you feel more a part. So that's something that, at least from the finance working group, I think that has been nice because we've been able to have those conversations that we want to have, that we need to have. But it's not so formal that you can't just ask a random question, help me understand what you're talking about this. And so when I think work session, that's what I think, having come from a different sector, and it was very valuable. So that's just my thoughts on it for what it's worth.
And to piggyback on what Mr. Scalf mentioned, while it may indeed reduce a sense of formality, it actually allows us, such a model of a work session allows us to dive and delve deeper into, again, singular and or even plural topics of discussion or items at hand. But indeed, it may indeed also provide a heightened level of clarity to particular issues and items. When we think about how it is that we all communicate and engage as is currently, and such a work session that is that does allow for communication, that does allow for back and forth question and answer. We then, at that point, will be able to, I think, as was referenced, take our sense of understanding to a different level. And I think that's the other, we indeed stand at the ready to continue to do the work. And we understand the imperative nature of what it is we're called to do. And I'm confident in our central office leadership team, building no leadership, staff, whole 9 yards that put us up against anyone. However, at the same time, at times, as they say, you always get what you've always gotten if you continue to do what you've always done. And so as to not veer from adjusting the paradigm. I mean, if indeed we continue to work on such work, again, there's a fear that will not accomplish most.
So if it passes that we're only approving next week or January 25th, how do I put this in the minutes? Do I have to say that the list that I had in there was voted no? I mean, how am I going to put this in?
With it, I mean, actually, you don't, you just need to indicate that the topic item.
Because nothing's approved.
Will be discussed
5.02,
further at the
I
January
mean, was
25th.
discussed and tabled. Well, I didn't hear a motion to table, but I think that was the consensus. Maybe if you want to clean up the minutes a little bit, you could have a motion to table it, because I think you withdrew your original motion. And it'll be.
Because the 25th is not listed yet, so they don't have to approve the 25th?
It would be a motion to amend
Ta-
and then to table, right?
Pardon?
Motion to amend, then to table? Amend to just include the 25th?
I thought the motions were, the
I can
original
amend
motion.
my motion to approve the 25th to approve the 25th, tabling the rest of the meetings to be discussed out
Yeah.
at the date.
That's fine, just reflect that in the minutes of tonight's meeting, then you're going to have to do an open door notice for the 25th.
And do we have a second to that motion? Kristen, thank you. Okay, any more discussion on that?
I would simply like to say that, as well as previously discussed at the previous executive committee meetings, we indeed had, as Mr. Sansini referenced, a great idea, we indeed had scheduled to have traveling board meetings prior to the last spike in COVID. And we were indeed looking forward to the opportunities to engage our community, which we will still indeed do. And when it comes to transparency, without a doubt, that's what we indeed are all working toward and will continue to provide. I think that this particular work session, as well as other ideas that we have with marketing and the other things we've been talking around, will give us ample opportunity. For example, later this month and 3 other times throughout the course of this semester, I'll be visiting such schools around our corporation, having conversations with our community, sharing with them our vision, where we are, how we got here, where we're going, and all the amazing things as was even alluded to with our public commentary guest this evening. Amazing things going on, we definitely want to share.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments? Let's vote. So all those in favor of Brad's motion, aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right. The vote passes 6-0. Moving on to 5.03, appointments. So we have some appointments, and I believe that's something that I need to talk about, or is that you? Dr. Wright, that's you.
Madam President, trustees, I come before you this evening with action item 5.03, appointments. The board in seek of the board to approve the following recommendations as presented. That Mrs. Karen Scout, Chief Financial Officer, be appointed School Treasurer for Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. That Melissa Swafford be appointed Deputy Treasurer for Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. That the School Board of Trustees appoint the following persons as representatives for Richmond Community Schools authorized to open and tabulate bids. Dr. Curtis Wright, School Superintendent, Mrs. Karen Scout, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Brandon Perkins, Technology Director, Ms. Melissa Swafford, Executive Assistant for Business Affairs, Mr. Glenn Slifer, Executive Director of Facilities. I also come for approval that Ron Cross of Boston Beaver Forest Cross and Sitcom be appointed school attorney for Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, and approve the contract as presented. And finally, I come to seek approval that the board appoint representatives for Richmond Community Schools to the following Indiana School Board Association standing committees. Redevelopment Commission, Mr. Pete Zaleski. Legislative Liaison, Mr. John Weber. And ISBA Delegate, Mr. Aaron Stevens, as presented.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the appointments?
I move to approve 5.03, the appointments as presented. by the
Second.
superintendent.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, moving on to 5.04, approval of existing policies and guidelines. Dr. Wright.
Madam President, trustees, I come back before you to seek approval for item 5.04, the approval of existing policies. At the January 11th, 2023 Board of School Trustees meeting, again, I ask for approval of all existing policies and guidelines as posted on the Richmond Community Schools website. And any addition requests can be found there on the website.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the policies and guidelines as presented?
I will motion to approve 5.04.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, we now have our consent items, looking at 6.01, approval of minutes.
Madam
President, I move to approve item 6.01, item 6.02 with the addendum for human resources and 6.03 as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have Aaron and Brad with the motions, and are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, moving on to our action items. 7.01, we have a change order.
And actually, Madam President, and trustees, I come before you for approval of action items 7.01 as well as 7.02. However, for 7.01, I ask that Mr. Glenn Slifer approach the board. Mr. Slifer?
Yes, of course, thank you. We have one change order to date for the Richmond High School pool filtration replacement system, an amount of $604.62. Recommendation that the Board of School Trustees approve the one change order as presented.
Hey, is there a motion to approve the change order as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
I'm wondering if, Glenn, if you could just give us a quick update of the pool filtration. So I know it's all together, it's finished, right? But there's still work being done there.
Well, we have two projects going on simultaneously. There, one, we did replace the filtration system in the supplies of water to the pool, which that has all been completed. There's a few punch items that needs to be done. So that should be able to close that one out relatively soon. The other project is the ongoing project for the pool, for the modernization project, water modernization project. So we are continuing. We've finally have gotten some air handlers delivered. The roof has been opened up, got them dropped down in the upper mezzanines on both north and south upper mezzanines. So they are feverishly currently putting them together to try to get them online. We're still missing a few key components to them, but we're at least able to move forward again to the next phase of getting it completed.
Okay, great. And I know all the swimmers are there, but they haven't been able to hold meets, but hopefully
Right.
for next season, the meets will be in place.
Yeah, unfortunately, we wasn't able to get the approval from our local health departments and fire departments because of the amount of people that was required to be in there. So we was able to get things around to allow them to practice in there only. And I think it's been going very well for them.
Thank you for that update.
Sure.
All right. So we have a motion on the table for 7.01. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. 7.02.
Madam President, trustees, coming back before you, asking for Mrs. Johnson, Senior Assistant Superintendent, to present action item 7.02. Mrs. Hansi.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. It is recommended that the Board of School Trustees accepts the contract for Mr. John Carriffo as presented. Richmond Community Schools has been once again selected to host the Summer of Learning Conference on June 15th, 2023. This professional development opportunity will offer various sessions on blended learning tools for RCS educators as well as other educators across the state. The keynote speaker will be funded using the Summer of Learning grant funds awarded to Richmond Community Schools. I would like to thank Joni Robinson, Tim Arnold, and Jeremy Hill. They have been working diligently. Not only did they submit the grant, receive the grant, but also are very connected among the state in the world of technology and blended learning, and are super excited to have John Carriffo as a keynote speaker. So thank you to them for working on this project for us.
Motion to approve 7.02 as presented.
Okay, motion by Brad.
Second.
Thank you, Kristen. Okay, any comments or questions?
I'll just add, I know last year they were a little disappointed with the turnout. Do they have any, I'm guessing they have some ideas.
We are working on that.
All right, so that's exciting.
We did change the time of the conference. The date is earlier in June.
Okay.
We're always trying to avoid vacations and then summer school. So it's like if you move earlier in June, you conflict with summer school for those teachers that may want to attend. We also are looking at ways we may be able to incentivize with a stipend those RCS educators that would potentially attend. So we are brainstorming some additional ways to increase those numbers.
So yeah, the quality is top notch, and that makes it even the turnout. Just last year, I think was it might have been COVID related or other things, but it just the quality is there. So you'd like to see those rooms packed.
And I do think on average, Richmond, we take pride that we're the longest standing district to be awarded the Summer of Learning grant. On average, I believe it was 300 participants prior to COVID. So hopefully that's a great goal to get us back up to that. I believe we were over 100 last year, but we did not reach that goal, so 300.
All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay, moving on to policy review and update. We
I'd
have,
like to make a motion that we move 8.01, policy 6230, gifts, grants, and bequests, and 8.02, policy 6250, naming guidelines for schools and facilities, to second reading.
okay, a motion,
Second.
Aaron for the second. Questions or comments on either of those policies? Okay. For the vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay. Moving on then to our strategic planning process update. I'm going to invite Dr. Rice to the podium.
And Madam President, trustees, again, Dr. Rice, as we know, has been with Richmond Community Schools even prior to my arrival, consulting and working to professionally develop not only our Board of School Trustees, but also working with our Central Office leadership teams as well as our building level leaders. Just this morning, we had a corporate-wide leadership meeting, and Dr. Rice indeed held court and provided us with an interactive work session. And out of the session, as well as out of Dr. Rice's guidance and consultation, we indeed will continue to press and grow as a professional learning organization that we all aspire to be. And right now, of what we are experiencing and have experienced, we continues to be worth its weight in gold, as they say. And so, Dr. Rice, we appreciate you being here, sir, and we know as you are getting set up to share with us the strategic planning processes, the goals that have come from the planning processes, as well as, again, necessary next steps that we'll all continue to take.
It's a pleasure to be here, and give me 1 second, I'll pull the PowerPoint up.
So Dr. Wright, are you able to talk about, a little bit to the public about just some of the stuff that Dr. Rice has been currently working
Yes.
with the cabinet on? I know what he's been doing here with the board, but.
Absolutely. Again, defining the difference between professional learning organization and a professional learning community, I think is imperative for our community, our public, as well as faculty, staff, and student stakeholders to understand. Within a professional learning organization, what you find is goals and charges toward particular tasks established and set by our board of governors. That is the blueprint, if you will, that is put in motion. And so with that, we then as central office level leaders work to be like that of the executive branch and carry out such tasks, such charges, such goals. It then becomes the responsibility and the duty of our building level leaders, our principals, within their professional learning community. A lot of times when people think of professional learning community, they think solely of teachers collaborating. It's much more than that, and I know that I don't want to steal Dr. Rice's thunder, but of what you've been working with us at the central office level and guaranteeing is that the processes, the protocols, the procedures are all aligning to see that the implementation is done with fidelity. And I know that with regard to Dr. Rice's personality, his persona, and with the changes that we've had within our leadership ranks, it really is boded quite well, and he's been well received. And that is more than half the battle when it comes to the PLO, is to have folks that are able to extract and garnish the very best from those individuals. And so, Dr. Rice.
We'll let him tell us.
Yes.
All right, greetings, thanks, and welcome, nice meeting you for the first time. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Patrick Rice, I've worked for Illinois Association of School Boards for almost 10 years with school board training across the state and rural, suburban, urban districts all across Illinois and also nationally. So also, now that the board has reorganized itself, I think this is a good place to begin at. And I always kind of ask in a word or a phrase, kind of what exactly is the role of the school board anyway, right? What exactly is the role? And I always say it's to govern, it's to provide oversight, to help oversee the control and direction of something. As compared to, things like management, which is of course, your superintendent and your admin team, who's responsible for the day-to-day operations of the district. But I always ask, even though we know that the role of the school board is to govern, right, to set the direction, and we know that we have our mission, our vision, the goals, all that's board work. I always ask, what's the number one duty of the board? What's the number one duty of the board? And anybody want to try?
Is it hiring a superintendent?
Hire a superintendent? I wouldn't disagree. Policy? I wouldn't disagree. But I also would say one other important thing, to work effectively as a team. And the more effective you all work together as a team, because we can have the best goals, we can have the best staff in the whole world, but if the governance team is not working effectively as a unit, seldom would things get accomplished and moving in the right direction. So you all have an important job to do. I'm just going too fast. One of the questions, like if you are downtown Indianapolis, this is an older graphic because now you got Uber and Lyft. I need to update this slide. But traditional cab, traditional taxi, you hail down a taxi and you hop in the car. The first question they're going to ask you, Mr. Slifer, is,
Where do you go?
where are you going? Now, if Dr. Wright is the taxi driver, he wouldn't care because the meter's running, he's making money, he say, hey, take your time, right? But typically they'll say, hey, where do you want to go? And that's the job of the school board to answer that question. Where exactly do we want to take the district? Where exactly do we want to go? And so again, that entails you all helping to set that overall direction, starting with the values, the mission, the vision, help designing goals. And you don't do that in a vacuum. Good boards work with the community, your stakeholders. What do the community would like to see? And then those become the superintendent goals, on down to your principal, on down to your principal work with our teachers. And eventually we know it also drills down to your students. Also, too, with some of the steps of general strategic planning, we always have to first assess, okay, well, where exactly are we at now? Let's look at data. Let's look at some of the assessments. What's already been in place, what's working, what's not working. Try to detect that question, where do we want to go? And how are we planning on getting there? And then finally, how are we progressing? And we're going to talk just a snippet about the progressing area today. That's when we're looking at data, being data driven, because we want to make sure that we have something to refer to make sure that we're headed down the right direction and that we're being effective in meeting our goals. So these are just some of the general elements, core values, beliefs of the district, the mission, the vision, and goals. Those are your basic steps in strategic planning. And I'm not going to touch on each of these slides, but values and beliefs that tell you why exactly we want to go on this journey in the first place. What things that the district really care about. Values are those timeless beliefs. They seldom change, they can change, but they're near and dear to our heart. Like, for instance, how many of you all believe students can learn? Yeah, that's a value. And so what are your values? What exactly are those fundamental beliefs? Here, we first met at a board meeting, June 18, 2020. Can't believe it's 2023 already. And we met with the board to determine what are some things that you all value. And we came up with a list of things at that time about what we value. For instance, that students should be, prepare students to be college and career ready. That it's a safe place to fail. I like that. It's a safe place. It's okay to make mistakes. You're not always going to be perfect. Learning should be growth focused, growth minded. So those were some values that came about in June 2020. In the mission statements, if you all recall, we also took a deep dive in looking at our current mission and vision of the district. And the mission, of course, is why we need to go on this journey. And answer that question, where are we going? So again, we also met June 18, 2020, and we determined at that time that no changes was needed to the mission statement. However, we did make a small tweak with our vision statement. We inserted that word collaborative, a collaborative community. And so it's always important that we take a pause every 2 to 3 years and come back and visit our strategic plan and make modifications. District level goals is basically what what's going to happen or what needs to occur to get us to the destination. What if we're going to reach our goals, what are some of the objectives? And so typically there's 7 areas that school boards typically work under. Student achievement, pupil services, which usually those things that happen outside the classroom, anything such as sports, athletics, special programs, facilities. Just saying there was some facilities issues. We all have them, right? District finances, Ms. Gav, make sure the lights is turned on. School community relations, how we engaged with our community. Rigorous conversation today about board meetings and making sure that the board have proper notice and when the board meet. Safety. Can't say enough about safety. We're hearing a lot about safety these days. How many of you all heard about social and emotional learning? That goes with that safety, right? Especially especially with COVID. And before COVID, not that it's still something that we do not focus on, but before COVID, remember, it was still a big push on active shooters. We still have that training as well. So we always focus in on safety and what that looks like for our students. Personnel. Oh, how many of you all having the teacher shortage in Indiana? You all having the teacher shortage in Indiana? Yeah, it's national, right? It's a national issue, a national problem. So those are the areas. So the board work, you all set that bar to determine how high that bar is going to be set. And then, of course, the district have to figure out how they're going to cross the bar that the board has set. And so that's the administration work that goes into the planning on how to reach the board goals. So these are community engagement. We had some very active community engagement. I really enjoyed those meetings. We had a series of focus groups and surveys. In the research world, and I'm a professor at University of Illinois, we call this triangulation of data, making sure that you're getting data from more than one data point and you triangulate it to make sure that that data is valid and accurate. So we met with the chamber focus group. We also met with the teacher focus group on November 22nd. We also had a general community focus group, and we had over 1,000 survey respondents. So this data was all collected, and when I had a chance to analyze that data, look at the general themes of that data, and then bring that information back to the school district so that we could look at it and analyze it together. And that information was very helpful because it helps the board set the goals for the district. Some of the things at that time that the community and for the focus group and your stakeholders, they said that they was most proud of. What are you most proud of? Vocational programs, strong business programs, the Logos Lab, dual credit, advanced placement, alternative education, caring and supporting staff. That's so important because a lot of the time we don't really stop to celebrate successes. We don't stop and realize just how good we are. Sometimes you could do 1,000 things right, but sometimes that one negative, right? But we do a lot of things right, and we do a lot of things here that people are very proud of in this community. They said some challenges. Have you ever worked for an organization that didn't have any issues? Anybody? I haven't. Every organization I worked for always had at least one issue, right? There's always room for improvement, but improving student learning, and that's continuous. Hiring and retaining staff, it's a national problem. It's a national problem. Social and emotional needs, that's everywhere. Vocational training, there's a push for vocational training everywhere too. We're now, used to be just a strong emphasis on college, not that that's important, but there's also, there's also other routes. My electrician and plumber make more than me. You know, so there's more than one way to determine what success looks like, right? Higher expectations with real world applications. We wanted to see more like student life skills and equity training, which is also emerging too. Skills students need to know, make sure they have mastery of core academics, communication skills, those consumer and financial skills, public speaking, and computer and IT. Some of the issues facing students is a lack of appropriate social activities in the community, drugs and alcohol, lack of parental support, SEL, and poverty-related issues. This is the basic necessities. What do we want for our students is more highly qualified teachers, learn more trades, and smaller classrooms. Financial priorities, improving the pay scale, retaining staff, and investing in human capital. And I'm not going to read every one of these, but I will leave the slides with you so that you have a hard copy. But technology needs. 3 things I want the district to do: make sure that kids are college and career ready, increase parental engagement, and vocational. So those were the 3 top things that the stakeholders felt like they wanted some more done right away. Community engagement. These are some of the general themes that students should have input into their education. You know, how to involve community and school programs. How do we intentionally engage our community and keep them active in our schools? How to invest in, like for instance, civics and volunteerism with our students. District overall satisfaction. Remember, this was based off 1,000. Very satisfied, 9%. Satisfied, 53. Dissatisfied to very dissatisfied, less than 10%. So we also, based on these, we created some goal areas based on this data. Academic achievement. Under personnel, how to become a professional learning organization. And that's just a fancy way of saying how can we become better organized and collaborate with all stakeholders working for a common direction. Community relations, how do we improve community relations? How do we, pupil services, focus area was on SEL needs, social and emotional learning. District facilities, ensure that our facilities and plant are well maintained. Personnel, that we wanted also to make sure that we have a diverse staff, provide equity and cultural awareness, because, you know, the fact of the matter is we all have implicit biases. Everyone does. And so make sure that we understand our students and from their different backgrounds. Key steps, October 23rd, 2021. The board met to have a tentative plan as to how the admin team are planning on meeting the goals. Superintendent will submit an action plan. A marketing campaign, Ms. Hazel Baker, great job, and doing a lot of that work with a marketing campaign. Principals will give updates to the board regarding board goals and where they're at, and monitoring standing agendas with the admin team. So as far as, I want to talk next really quick about monitoring. Today, I've been meeting with your, district cabinet for a while. One of the things that we looked at today was we talked about what type of resources are needed. We also talked about how we might monitor this, because remember what gets monitored has a better chance of getting completed, right? How are we going to measure this and measure if something's working or not? So that may include various things. We may look at some focus groups down the road. We may look at some surveys. There's all type of, do we want to have a survey of our staff? Let's say they usually have some type of teacher retreat at the beginning of the year. Maybe we survey our staff and see, do they feel that there's a common direction, there's a common mission, they understand district priorities, they feel welcome and they feel valued, they feel safe. They understand where we're trying to get to. They feel and understand that we have resources. So just taking some surveys, and it's always, your first year, whenever you collect any type of data such as that, your first year is just always a base year. And so, but what you want to see is, are we seeing growth over time? So my plan is to continue to work with the administrative team and the district cabinet, and also I'm looking forward to especially working with people like Mr. Saney and Mr. Baker, and also really working more directly with principals and what they need to be successful at the building level, because that's when the rubber really hits the road, right? And carrying out a lot of the district goals. So my plan is to really work with central office and with the board as needed to help make sure that we are monitoring the plan and progress of the plan. So, any questions for me? Hopefully, I try to wrap that up pretty quick. With 3 years of data, really quick.
I just want to thank you. Just the sheer job of aggregating all of that data was huge. I can't imagine over 1,000 responses between the survey, between the focus groups. That in and of itself is a huge task. But then you also keep us on track and accountable. So thank you for that, Dr. Rice, as far as and showing the public just how the input from the community of over 1,000 people talking to us and voicing their opinions and concerns and everything, how that directly affected the strategic plan, our strategic goals, how and that it's an ongoing process. That there's a level of, okay, here's where we are, but here's where we need to be. Now let's go back and where are we now, and let's keep tweaking and adjusting. So I just want to say thank you for explaining that and the work that you're doing for our district.
Yeah, thank you all. And a lot of times is, like I said, I have worked with schools all over the country. And in many cases, unfortunately, you see even a district that have multiple schools, but you often see it just schools in a district, but there's not truly a school system. There is no uniformity, there's no commonalities. And why this is so important, because if you do not have a common mission and vision and goals, or a common vision, you're going to have division. And so we want to make sure that we have, keeping those arrows aligned where everyone knows where the district is moving. And those are the districts that we know from tons of research that are more effective. So kudos to you all for doing this work and for allowing me to work with you all.
I think we all recognize that we have a lot of work to do. So, thank you for.
All right, thank you all.
And the beauty with that, just to piggyback on what Dr. Rice has referenced as far as that work, when you think about our collective mission and vision, but then when you think about what it is that we've been talking about all year long, which is from a visionary standpoint, improving upon quality Tier 1 instruction, and for folks at home and in TV land, the millions and millions watching, that simply means we're trying to improve upon the instructional quality that our classroom teachers are providing. And the way in which to do that is to continue to professionally develop, continue to collaborate, listen, and engage in dialogue with those practitioners in the classroom that are putting theories in place, but overall improving upon quality Tier 1 instruction, systemically aligning, as Dr. Rice had referenced, and as was also mentioned, when you have a healthy organization, when you have a healthy school community, our students are more prone to reaching levels of student achievement that are very high. And so aligning our systems and in orders of operation. And then finally, as was mentioned, one of the third and one of the important areas of focus from a visionary standpoint is continue to provide quality social and emotional supports. When we think about what has occurred even just this past 2 weeks there at Richmond High School, and when we think about those who swung in action to see to it that our students are still met with high quality service, is remarkable. And so again, through customer care, customer satisfaction, and rest of the board will get where we need to be.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on to our board reports. And this is the time of year where if someone's thinking that they would like to be participating in something different, one of the other working groups, then just we can make some arrangements. And then Pete, obviously, we'd love to have you jump
Probably
in on
finance makes some sense. so.
finance, okay. Just so the public knows, we're able to have 3 board members on each of the working groups. So if we have more than that, we'll have to make some arrangements and rearrangements. But at this point, you're in because we don't have more than 3. So we'll put you down there, Pete. All right. Anyone else thinking of one that they would like to do differently or add or?
John, would you like to be on buildings and grounds too, or?
I mean, I can return, it's up to, I don't know, education's probably the big one. I mean, I'm not saying I wanna be on education, but that's a hole we need to probably fill. I don't know if Mr. Mops had interest or, it's hard to say.
It's gonna be hard for him to get to.
Yes. That's usually at a 4:30.
4:30.
You guys might be able to swing that.
Is it 4:30?
We've done Google Meets or Zoom
I was
too.
gonna say
so
virtual
we're-
action.
we're able to
our
attend.
I think we pushed it back for another board member to
Yeah.
4:30 so that they could make it.
Yeah.
But we also have the virtual option that we've explored in the past as well.
We need to ask him if he's interested.
Any others? People wanting to shift or change or rearrange?
If he does not express an interest in any, John, you said you would be interested in education?
Not, well, by virtue of being here, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you know, Keith, you know, he was super well suited for
Right.
that committee.
And that's why I was thinking, Mr. Mops might, but, you know, what about buildings and grounds?
Are we each on 2 committees? Is that right or no?
Don't
Is
have
that-
to
You don't
Okay.
have to be, but
You should be on at
that
least
is,
one.
Okay.
at least one is the expectation. So,
And that could come off, you know, marketing probably or finance if we wanted to, if there's more interest.
I don't think it's something that we have to completely decide tonight, but again, extending the invitation to Mr. Mops, you know, what he would like to
yeah.
participate in.
Okay, let's let that simmer. All right, so any reports though from educational planning working group?
We have not had a meeting, but I'm anxious to have one. I am, just so I can hear updates since we have a new position, a new person in this dean position, just to see how things are coming along.
Yeah, that meeting last night was magnificent. No.
We did have a science adoption meeting last night, so I didn't know if that's what you're referring to.
No.
Just,
We do have ISTEAM professional development on the 25th, and we met with Mr. Hensley, our new director of STEAM. Mr. Baker and I met with him and Mrs. Laudermilk yesterday, and we have standing meetings set up. So I may push back to like the first week in February just to get through that PD, and then give them 2 weeks to kind of work through some things that they're working on, and then we'll meet maybe the first week in February. So I'll send something out.
Okay, that's great.
just a reminder, all the board members to stop by Dr. Wright's office and check out flooring samples that we need to kind of get everyone's kind of input on. And Glenn, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Mr. Slifer, can you give us, I mean, this is the elephant in the room right now with a lot of people.
It's okay.
I know we.
You asked the question, I'll answer it.
Okay. Well, we had to move the start date for the high school back to the end of the month. How's things going?
Maybe start at the beginning.
Yeah,
just
start at
so
the
public
beginning
forum,
and
what
just
happened.
let us know what all happened
Yeah.
and where we are.
Okay, for the high school water damage?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did have a half-inch line that was pushed out of the solder joint due to the cold weather, freezing, bulging. And it actually broke pretty clean. It, half-inch line puts out 50 gallons a minute for tidbit. That's 3,000 gallons an hour. And it ran roughly 30 hours from the time it went. And so we estimated approximately 90,000 gallons of water, of which was very substantial. That water went somewhere, so getting the water up quickly, what was visible was really the simple task. But once we dug into it more and more, the structure got soaking wet, and that's what the big delay is now, is we had to bring some bigger equipment in to dry out the structure, because we have to dry out the structure before we start putting back together, whether it's drywall, paint, carpet, flooring, whether we do LVT, any type of flooring. So that has to be dried out, moisture free. That's primarily is taking the longest to get to that point. And in the meantime, there's been a slew of people that's been part of it, from all of our staff here, Karen, Jamie, Dr. Wright, Mrs. Sonsani, trying to get it back together, you know, from books to the coverings to the, you know, we even had to pull lockers out to help dry things out behind the lockers. It's how much water. So that water had to go somewhere, even though we had some floor drains down on the bottom. So it sat there. So it was it did impact quite a bit of stuff. But it's nothing that can't be repaired. We can bring it back better than it was. So we're really optimistic about putting it back together and getting it. We're kind of stacking and racking the contractors, our local contractors. I want to put a big thank you out to them. They have more than been willing to step up and help us in any way they can with their manpower, their knowledge, their recommendations. So we've had people call. So it's been really quite refreshing. I mean, to get the support that we can, you know. And then, of course, Karen gets the lovely job of dealing with the insurance and dealing with the matrix of that, and I don't want to even start talking about that because that's not my expertise. So, but you know, so there's a lot of other side of the fence there that you know, a lot of people don't realize and what's going on. Wasn't caused for anything. The break happened in an area that we haven't had any problems in 100 years, for example. So it wasn't anything fault of anything or made by any certain reason or faulty or something. We just found it. There was a relief damper not far from it that had enough air pass through it because of the extreme cold weather, and the wind just blew right. So, but there again. So I'm really pleased on how it goes. Our expectations are to have the structure, our goal is to have the structure dried out by the end of this weekend. And if all goes well, we plan on actually putting things back together come Monday morning. So then once that starts happening, then you'll see a lot of transitioning helping, and things will change quickly. And then we can bring it back online. So,
Thank you, sir.
you're welcome.
And also, if someone could just address the food. Karen, I think that's kind of you, because
Yeah.
some public may
Yeah.
not.
So, and actually we have a new announcement, so it's a great night to do that. So students at RHS are able to eat at their neighborhood schools. So we got a special permission from the IDOE. So I have to give them a shout out because I talked to the head of the Child Nutrition Division, and they are actually applying for a waiver for us to Washington D.C. with the USDA in order to maybe modify that with the length of time that we're going to be out, just to make it more convenient for our families. We do not know yet if that will be approved, but in the meantime, students can go to their neighborhood schools. As soon as school is out, they are serving for 45 minutes until 2:15. So from 1:30 to 2:15 each day, high school students can go get a lunch. We just ask that they check in at the door 1 in the office, and make sure that they stop by the secretaries there, sign in, make sure that they know they're in the building, and then they'll take it from there and get them to the cafeteria to eat. Tomorrow, the high school will begin serving again at the high school for anybody who wants to stop by and eat there. They will also be serving breakfast at the high school. Unfortunately, just due to the timing and how things work, breakfast in the neighborhood schools is really hard. The IDOE, it was hard to make that happen. But at the high school, we are able to do that. So we're going to serve breakfast from 8:30 to 9. So the half hour before school starts, they can stop by, get something to eat. And they can also eat lunch during their lunch break if they want to stop by the high school, for anyone who can get there. And then they will also serve again from 1:30 to 2:15. So students have multiple opportunities to get food. They're at that building as well as throughout the district.
And just to piggyback on what Mrs. Scalf referenced, just for clarity, students, if I'm a high school student, and unfortunately I can't get to Richmond High School, but I live near Bell Elementary or Charles Elementary or Fairview, whatever it may be, I can attend those schools.
Yes, so all, and I repeat, all Richmond community schools can serve our high school students during this time. So
It doesn't mean that high school students will be sitting next to my kindergartner.
it does not.
It doesn't mean that a high school student will be roaming around the building.
It does not.
There are set times that have been highly publicized, and high school students at this point are well aware. They've been successful.
Yes.
Seeking out and retrieving food, of course, the last few days.
Yeah.
Do we have any preliminary numbers to know how many are taking advantage of this yet? Or I know it's just.
It's pretty small.
Okay.
I'll be real with you. It's pretty small.
Mhm.
However, if families need it, it's there, and so we're trying to just make sure that the resource is available.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to thank our community, like Mr. Slimer said, our vendors and everything, but also just the parents and the students for kind of rolling with it a little bit. I mean, nobody planned on this, and maybe it's one of the things that COVID did teach us is we can continue on without being in person. So just thanks to all the parents and the students that are affected. And obviously, nobody wants it to be this way, but it is what it is. And from what I understand, the attendance rate has been really, really high for the virtual learning, and just which we didn't see that during COVID. I mean, it's been really, really impressive to see the attendance rate and the kids' willingness to do whatever it takes to get the work done.
Also, I think we should say a thank you to the teachers too for being, adapting, and this isn't ideal for them. They have lesson plans ready to go for in person, and to be able to modify those and make the best of the situation. Thank you to the teachers and administrators and staff for adapting to this change.
I've been amazed at how patient everyone has been. It has been very refreshing to see the amount of patience and the support. I've got emails, how can I help? Offering to support in different ways. So if there are ways that we can be asking for help, there are people that want to help. I appreciate the open communication, the transparency. Yes, we've got some problems. Here's what they are. Here's what we're doing about it from central office. So thank you guys for working on that. I know you're working overtime on all of those things, but I keep the communication coming, because that's been very much appreciated by everybody that I've talked to. And again, the transparency just in where we are on things, because nobody likes to hear the words mildew or asbestos or mold or, but yet this is what we're dealing with, and we want to deal with it in a very, in a proper way.
And just for clarity,
Yes.
as our moisture mapping and management assessments and batteries of tests have continued and will continue throughout this process, at this particular point, hazardous challenges that have been identified have indeed been addressed. The school indeed right now is safe from a standpoint of those particular conditions, but indeed we're, as you all have mentioned, and I concur, we are just proud, extremely proud of the resolve, resiliency, and the response of our entire community. You all mentioned that COVID indeed taught us all a handful of things, and there have been indeed silver linings, but I'd be remiss to, if I didn't reference that here in Richmond Community Schools, while the rest of the country and most of the world during the height of COVID pivoted and exercised synchronous live instruction. Here in Richmond, that was a decision that ideally wasn't at that point feasible. Again, with our infrastructure, or lack thereof, when it comes to fiber wire and some of the internet accessibilities, there was concern. But to see what we have seen these past few days, and again, not only with record attendance, but also the engagement, being able to tune in to the courses and the classes virtually, the faculty, the staff, the students, they're moving in an area that they've never moved before. And the 6.5 to 7 hours that we assisted and supported the Richmond High School administrative team, that they, again, that was the time that was allotted for them to prepare for what they, as well as many teacher leaders, came out with as a plan of action. And to see that action, that plan of action being put in motion is remarkable. Most often, especially at the height of COVID, most other corporations spent 2.5 to 3 months preparing for live synchronous instruction. Our team had less than 8 hours. And with this situation, as I've alluded to, and as we've alluded to with our communication, we will indeed continue to communicate. Things change. Each day, we are learning that much more. And in real time, we're indeed arriving at logistical challenges and state regulations, but most importantly, we're getting it done, and we'll continue to do just that. And so from a communication standpoint, we'll continue to provide updates as we move down the road. I know I'll be on the news tomorrow to talk about this particular matter, to share with our community what we're doing, what we've done, what we'll continue to do. And as Mr. Schleifer mentioned, along with Mrs. Scalf, the abundance of support and the response from our insurance company, our local insurance provider, along with those umbrella organizations, they have been second to none when it comes to their customer service and customer support. And so we're excited. I guess the silver lining and excitement is that when this is all said and done, our faculty, staff, students, and our community will have a schoolhouse that will be repaired that many of us will not even recognize. And it will maintain its historic nostalgia, if you will, but there's going to be some, I think, contemporary features that weren't there before. And as we know, our community and our city deserves it.
All right, so.
I just another kudos. I know, Tom, sometimes how we're structured, people question, but having those e-learning specialists, and e-learning really hasn't been, a couple of years, but having those guys, always advancing the curve. So when this hit, they were ready. And I think, so when administration then tags them and you see a picture of high school staff, e-learning specialists, and admin, you're like, that's the exact structure we want to have and exactly how things should work. If we hadn't had those three individuals, where would we be today? We'd be in a much different place, I think. So I think it's important to always have people pushing the boundaries, seeing what's the next step, ahead of the curve. And in this instance, I'm super fortunate that we were there. So
we're extremely excited to glean data from this entire experience.
From an education standpoint, I think I would imagine you'll see a drop off in attendance. Are we working on strategies, the synchronous e-learning's new for most, if not all, of our staff. Are we doing follow-ups to say, hey, we're doing this really well in these classrooms? Could we mirror these processes in other classrooms? Are we doing that on an ongoing basis? Are we working on strategies to maintain attendance through the end of the month?
Absolutely.
What are we doing?
One of the things that Ms. Whoopi highlighted during our corporate-wide leadership team just this morning was the amount of the abundance of phone calls, follow-up communication, touch points, all of the resources and supports that we have in place currently to maintain that high level of attendance virtually. However, to your point, indeed, we are, as I just referenced, we're really excited to glean from the data that's being collected with this experience, how indeed we can continue to improve upon our virtual offering over the next few weeks for sure, but most importantly with those professional learning communities, being that RHS is the professional learning community, through the collaboration within the departments, they're finding out what indeed has been found to be best practice or effective practices, I'll put it that way. And one thing that we already have in place is opportunities for teachers to communicate, collaborate, engage, share, and at the same time with the virtual piece, as a central office leadership team, we can indeed visit and be right there along the way, every step to provide particular support. So, I don't want to steal any thunder or other.
I can talk curriculum all day long.
No doubt about it.
No, I think it's definitely worth just emphasizing again the collective response of the RHS team, and to be present when you have department chairs and technology leaders, not only the e-learning specialists, so again, I'll say Jeremy Hill, Tim Arnold, and Joni Robinson, having paved that way, but then to actually have the opportunity to implement. But to your point, it is important that we continue to look at attendance in ways to provide that blended learning experience. And so even after the first day, there were conversations, because a lot of the first day of a semester is getting to know the syllabus, what are the expectations. Remember, these are new, some classes are completely new, so teachers are having to get to know students for the first time in a blended space. And so once we got through that first day of syllabus, one thing that was extremely helpful to our cabinet team and directors is that the high school team provided all of the links for the Google Meets in one document, and so we could hop in, check in on staff, praise them for the work that they're doing, see some of the high quality instruction, see how they're mirroring with presentations. Engagement always is a concern. We don't see a lot of student faces. They choose not to show their face, but they're on, and we're okay with that as long as they're engaging and we're seeing in the chat box and their voice. Keeping students on for that 30 minutes is the goal. That's what kind of checks that box with the Department of Education. So again, Mrs. Brazel and the high school team came up with a revised schedule. I think it's working extremely well to have those 30-minute blocks of time, then a short break, then come back, have a few more periods, a break, finalize the day, and then have open periods at the beginning and the end. So I do think they're being responsive to needs. We heard today in corporate discussion, 2 different high school teachers talk about a different strategy. I think it was a Jamboard or something that they had tried, they had learned about previously from the tech team, but hadn't implemented it. But today, the teacher said, I tried it and it worked really well. And so I think that goes back to encouraging teachers to take risk and try things. We've never had synchronous instruction for all students for this long on the platform. And so I think it's kind of being responsive to needs. We also have heard back there are certain populations of students that may need additional support. And so, for example, Mrs. Baker and Mrs. Markward have worked together to provide an opportunity for applied skills students to report to Hibbard. So that is an option. We still have the virtual option as well. But that applied skills staff has been very responsive to that need. They're making phone calls. So just day by day, I know that Communities in Schools has reached out and said, how can we help? Do we need to send other site coordinators in? I think we have to pause and also thank Morrison Reeves Library and the Boys and Girls Club and the paraprofessional staff and other staff at Richmond High School that have relocated to those places. Whether they're serving 1 student, 10 students, or 100 students, it is worth their time. And so what I can say is that Mr. Wright has been visiting those places, and we've seen attendance anywhere from 1 student up to 10 students attending any of those sites. We also are being responsive and opening a 5th help center, so that if it hasn't come out yet, will be coming out very shortly. But I do think those department chair meetings are happening, and on a daily, if not every other day basis, to check in and say, okay, what did you do in social studies? How did that work? You know, how are you engaging kids? The attendance we are tracking on a daily basis, and we were extremely pleased with the first day and how it's progressed. So we're hoping that it doesn't drop off. So not only are we monitoring attendance, but also engagement, right? We're still responsible for student learning on this platform. So how we assess student, I'll be honest with you, that's kind of the next challenge that our e-learning team is thinking about. How do we assess student learning on a digital platform? So again, they're always thinking 1 step ahead. But attendance has been relatively comparable to that of in person.
And the beauty with the last question, as far as how do you assess and measure, the beauty with that is we have particular models that have already proven to be successful around the country. And even the model in which we previously engaged prior to my assuming role here is one that we'll turn to. But I think the other silver lining with this experience during the height of COVID and while synchronous instruction was implemented and executed across the country, the amount, when you think about social emotional, there was a heightened increase in calls placed on behalf of students and teachers that could indeed see areas of concern. And again, that's just something that we're able to at least keep up the pace and not totally fall off or fall out for the next few weeks. And we'll continue to get better. As one of the things that standing before the RHS faculty staff last week, as well as virtually just yesterday, each day they will continue to get better. And by this time next week, they'll be that much more experienced, advanced, students and parents. And so, Zaleski, the question that you posed, very important, because sustainability of that high quality, again, instruction is the goal, and the logistics behind making that happen are abundant and great, but folks have been working hard.
Thank you.
Kudos for your creativity on combating this. It's been heartwarming to see our community partners helping out, supporting. So, okay, we are at 10.03 Finance Working Group. Any comments or thoughts? Or
we did meet, and Kristen and I, kind of more of a prep meeting. I mean, we have the annual audit going on, and then just looking at the budget financial picture and how that may change, or you know, kind of what's coming down the pike. I don't know, Kristen, do you have any specifics?
No, just that we have, I think, 2 more years on ESSER money and Title I cuts that are coming, and so just thinking about being fiscally responsible in this budget year. And Karen does a great job of keeping us fiscally responsible. We don't always like to hear all the cuts, but she can't control those, I guess. So.
Or keep us on task very well.
Right.
All right, Marketing Working Group. Anything to report?
There's been some emails. I have not looked very close. Looks like we've received some artwork.
Yeah, we've received artwork for the different school mascots. So we'll meet hopefully next week.
Yep.
Next week. And then we also have some new STEAM Academy, so we can start looking at some marketing for that organization.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the preview of upcoming meeting and events.
Madam President, trustees, our next scheduled board meeting, as was discussed earlier today, is Wednesday, January 25th. And on that day, we will continue to highlight and showcase all the amazing things occurring here within Richmond Community Schools.
And our adjournment / bell ringer, Dr. Ray?
Madam President, trustees, I ask that Mrs. Bridget Hazelbaker, our communication specialist, join us back at the podium to share our bell ringer for the evening. Welcome back, Mrs. Hazelbaker.
Welcome. Thank you. Of course, our bell ringer has to be all of our staff and the community partners that are over there, insurance adjusters, everybody over there. Just been amazing. And our families are doing great with the support that they're giving their students. As far as upcoming events, our Richmond High School bowling teams participating in sectionals this weekend at Richmond 40 Bowl. That's the individual competition and the team competition. And then the following Saturday, they're going to be hopefully competing in regionals, and that's at Newcastle. Of course, there's no school Monday, January 16th due to Martin Luther King Day. Richmond is also hosting the NCC wrestling meet this weekend. Yeah, this weekend. And then also, before our next board meeting on the 24th is the district spelling bee. So I challenge Pete Zaleski to be the announcer. Mayor Snow will be the announcer, and we have some judges too. So that'll be at Civic Hall. All right, that's all I have.
All right, so there are lots of opportunities for those high school students who need some socialization to get out there. We've got gymnastics, we've got basketball, swimming, bowling, wrestling, all kinds of fun stuff, and spelling bees. So, all right, anything else for the good of the cause? Meeting adjourned.